Here, we have this long row of sheds here. They are called the gunboat sheds. To start the story here, I have to start by saying something crazy. Denmark, a military superpower. Well, we were back in 1807. We had the fourth biggest fleet in the world, but we lost it in a war with the British. So we had to rebuild our fleet. We couldn't build a similar fleet. We didn't have the resources to do so. The time, the money. We didn't even have the wood. So what we did in the meantime was we built gunboats, basically rowing boats with a few cannons in front and back. And they were kept and stored here at the gunboat sheds. At least we had a coastal defense of Copenhagen. The king had to think about this problem here, this calamity here. He had almost overnight lost 80 warships, almost 200 merchant ships. How to rebuild such a fleet? The time and the money he didn't have an answer for. The wood. He immediately ordered 400 oak trees to be planted so he could rebuild his fleet. And it's only a few years ago that an email was sent from our Danish Agriculture Ministry to our Defense Ministry, probably with a smirk, saying, "We are happy to announce that the trees have now grown up and are ready for the Danish fleet." On our right here, we have this tall building out there with the tall chimneys being smoked there. This is Copenhagen. Copenhagen is one of the world's most modern incineraries, and it turned out to be so efficient at burning garbage. So now we have to import garbage to Copenhagen to keep it running. We do not have enough ourselves. And we need to keep it running at full speed because we rely on it to produce energy, hot water, heat for the Copenhagen region. And it's so efficient at burning garbage, so it would be insane not to use its full potential. We can import garbage from as far away as Italy, burn it at this facility here, and still prove that we have a positive climate impact from doing so. That's all very good, a little bit technical, but it shows that Denmark might be a small country. We can be a pioneer in green technology. We were for sure with windmills, we can be it again. There's another story about this building here. Denmark is a very flat country. For heaven's sake, our most famous mountain here in Denmark is 147 meters high. As we even call that mountain the Sky Mountain. So what can we do with a building like this? Well, we use it to build a ski slope. So now you can go skiing here in the middle of Copenhagen all year round on top of Copenhagen. There's also a climbing wall going all the way up to the top there, 80 meters high, the tallest one in Europe. There's also an elevator, I can tell you, much easier. And if you make it up to the top, what will you find on top? Well, you're in Denmark. You'll find a bar. We'll put a bar up there so you can have a beer. All the good ideas that came from the famous Danish architect Bjarke Ingels and his company, The Big Design. Plenty of you have problems back at your hotels, noisy neighbors or something like that? Because then I can help you. Here on the left here, Kai Hotel, one room only. Also on the left here, some of the biggest houseboats for a visit to Copenhagen Harbour having a little hideaway out here. We can call it a rich man's hideaway. Opening up now here on the right here, we have a military part of the harbour here called Holmen. Not really being used all that much by active military ships anymore, but we have 3 museum ships in here dating back from the Cold War era that you can go and visit. The first one with a good story, that is the submarine that you see up there on land. The name is the Seal, and it was one of the last operational submarines we had in the Danish Navy, and it was operational back in 2003 during the Second Gulf War. So when the Allies asked Denmark, can you send us something down here to Iraq, something down here to the desert, something that we can use in the desert war? What did Denmark send to a desert war? Yes, we sent a submarine. The grey ship that you see up there at the very end there, this is the frigate Skam. It was one of the flagships of the Danish Navy during the Cold War. The Cold War never turned into a hot war. This ship, however, it turned incredibly hot. Back in 1982, it fired a Harpoon missile by mistake, damaging 130 houses. Nobody was home, nobody got hurt. Probably also why the 2 main tabloids here in Denmark, they pretty much agreed on the same headline the day after. Whoops. The last of the museum ships that you can see, that you can visit in there is the small green one there that you see up by the crane. The name is a Seehestel, one of the Lillemoos class fast attack crafts that we had a group of in the Danish Navy. They were considered very capable weapon platforms. They were considered very suited to the Danish terrain. Obviously, during the Cold War, they never saw any real combat. The invasion fleet never appeared on the horizon. However, we have since then learned from our East German archives the assassination plans. They were indeed drawn up in great detail for East German and Polish forces to come up here by sea for the seaborne invasion of Denmark. Behind the scenes, in there you see a crane. Remember when I was talking about this big fleet in 1807? Well, back then, military warships were huge warships with tall masts. And as a final part of their assembly, they got towed here to Holland here in front of this very crane here to get the masts hoisted upon it. And this crane here, the crane itself, an all-wooden structure, only rope and wood has been used for the crane itself, is strong enough to lift the mast as high as 40 meters, weighing 20 tons on top of warships. Quite an accomplishment for its time, as it was completed back in 1751. Coming into view now here in front of us, very soon on our right, at the very end of Holmen, we have Battery 6s. Battery 6s here is an active part of the defense of Copenhagen Harbour. And the cannons that you see there on top of the ramparts, they do work, I know. Because I live nearby and they're being fired twice a day. They're being fired in the morning at sunrise and in the evening at sunset. Problem, however, is that during the summertime, the sun rises here in Copenhagen at 4:30 in the morning. So you do not get popular with your neighbors firing cannons at 4:30. So it has been decided that the sun rises here in Copenhagen at 8 o'clock. Hey, problem solved. This next canal here on the right here, we have Urban Rigger. Very difficult for young people coming to Copenhagen to study, to find cheap accommodation. So these are converted ship containers. Very sustainable living quarters for young people studying here in Copenhagen. Very conveniently placed out here by this area. There's a lot of creative schools that make use of these shipyard buildings here for activities. I will not necessarily call Urban Rigger cheap accommodation, but I will call them affordable. And for sure you can't beat the location. We're living right here in the border here in Copenhagen Harbour. Another good idea by Bjarke Ingels and his company to be designed. Out here at the end of Vestøen there you see a crane out there. This is an option to do bungee jump over Copenhagen Harbour. And since we're not that many on the boat here for this departure here, I'm willing to share with you a marketing trick.